of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his 72 companions, recite the second salawat. For Allah to shower onto this gathering with His infinite mercy and compassion, and to hasten the reappearance of our 12th Imam, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Every year, my dear friends, brothers and sisters, nearly 130 million children are born around the world. Some of them are born into the loving arms of their parents, cradled with compassion, with care. And some of them from that moment experience rejection, abuse. Some children are born into wealth. Some children are born into honorable, decent families, stable life. And some were not planned, or they are born in poverty. Some of them do not even have a family. They will never sense love, affection, and belonging. Some children are raised with love and affection and respect, while others are raised with fear, rejection, and abuse. Whatever the experience may be, whether good or bad, what is for certain is that those experiences will make who we are for the rest of our lives. You would not believe the amount of emails that I receive, sometimes on daily basis, of people speaking to me about their childhood and the trauma they experienced as children and teenagers or while they were children, and how that's affecting their lives today. Asking me, Sayyid, I really cannot forgive my parents. It's very difficult for me to have to face my mother, to have to face my father, knowing how I was abused and neglected. Or some of them today, as we speak, growing up into a household of abuse. And this topic is rarely addressed. It is rarely talked about. And I'm here to remind you all why we gather in such nights. While I am extremely proud, I cannot tell you how proud I am to see that the majority of the audience from the first night is wearing black, eager to shed tears for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, to join his mother Fatima Zahra and Aza in solidarity. But let us remind ourselves of the mission statement of Imam al-Hussein. Why was it that Imam al-Hussein embarked on this journey? Why did he leave the city of Medina? he says to us very clearly, and I've said this, we should make sure that we write this in the entrance of every single one of our majalis, so that when we enter a majlis and when we leave a majlis, we remind ourselves with the mission statement of Imam al-Hussein. And we do not deviate away from his mission statement. We stay focused. He says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشِرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا. I did not embark on this journey for the sake of fame or popularity or worldly gain. In fact, he was very clear that I know for a fact that I'm not going to be physically victorious in this battle. He says on many occasions in his letters that whoever comes and joins the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein will not receive money and land and victory. You will receive something much greater, much more precious, and that is martyrdom, ash-shahadatu fi sabilillah. But I embarked for the sake of بل خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي رسول الله, to perfect the ummah of my grandfather Rasulullah. How, ya Aba Abdullah? لكي آمر بالمعروف, to enjoin the good, وأنهى عن المنكر, and to forbid evil. There is a lot of evil in our families, in our communities, in our behavior. And I believe that our youth especially are eager to hear what Islam has to say about such topics. Some of them are under the impression that Islam has no opinion on childhood trauma, or how you ought to raise a family, take care of your children. And that's got to change. We cannot continue to remain silent on such topics. Moment, brothers and sisters, we gather and we cry for the orphans of Imam al-Hussein, for the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein. But do we stop for a moment and cry for the tragedy of our Muslim brothers and sisters? While we think of the orphans of Imam al-Hussein and how they had no home and they had no food and they had no shelter and they had no protection and there was no one to protect them, there are millions of orphans today living in the land of Imam al-Hussein who do not have protection, who do not have shelter. They don't have food. They don't have security. They don't have a sense of belonging. If we attend the majalis of Imam al-Hussein years in, years out, and it does not change the way we behave, it does not give us the spirit, the Husseini spirit, those majalis are then useless. And we live in this country and we constantly just think about ourselves. We've become so selfish. It's all about me, my kids, my home, my children, what we wear, how we dress, how we travel. We rarely pause and think, we have enough. Allah has blessed us. We don't need any more. Let us share what we got. Let's share it with others. Let's be more compassionate. Another extremely touching story that I want to share with you before I engage in my topic is a story of a 5-year-old child named Jesse. Jesse was born into a family of multi-generational child trafficking. Abuse in an unbelievable way. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. It just doesn't get better. At the age 5, he was trafficked so much that he was picked up by the police, taken to a foster home. At the age 5. He's taken into foster home, from foster home to another, until many attempts fail. They take him to a foster home with a family that takes care of kids with special needs. And he's there with another 9 kids. This is a true story, by the way. And there he's being abused every day. Physically beaten every day. He's not being fed just because of extremely small, petty little things. Many nights he's forced to sleep outside in the chicken coop. Many nights he tries to run away from the house, but they strip him away from his clothes so he can't run away. He's only left with his underwear. So one day he is running, in the middle of the winter, he's running outside on the road, barefoot, doesn't have anything to wear, with his underwear, a little kid. And the deputy sheriff picks him up and he says, "What are you doing? You're running in the middle of the street?" And he explains to the deputy sheriff of the trauma, of the abuse that he's facing with his foster parents. And the deputy sheriff tells him, "You're lying. Instead of being grateful to those people, you're accusing them? Shame on you." And he takes him back. When he takes him back, the foster father beats him so much that he ends up at the hospital. Now, when he ends up at the hospital, he gets out and he goes to another foster home and he's taken care of until Jesse makes it to high school many years later. And he's doing very well. Except there's one problem. Jesse had a very good math teacher. And the math teacher was very nice to him, but Jesse had a problem with the math teacher. Every time the math teacher would walk around the class, Jesse would get into a fight with him. They actually got into physical fistfights. He's taken to the principal's office. "What are you doing? Why?" "I don't know. I have no idea." Until they realized, listen to this. This is unbelievable. Until they realized that the math teacher was using the same deodorant as the foster father, the father at the foster home. And as soon as this math teacher would walk around and he would smell the scent, he would go into the mode of fear or fright, or fight. And he would want to protect himself, not knowing what he was even doing. This is how important this topic is. Now, many of you might be thinking, "Sayyid, why are you using such extreme examples? The vast majority of us have not experienced this, nor will experience this. Why don't we use more relatable examples?" And I'll tell you why. Number one, it's because we need to be more thankful. We need to be more grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, I see some kids, Why are you so upset with your parents? They don't buy me an iPhone 13. All my friends have an iPhone 13. I don't have one. Really? Is that your problem now? And one way to be grateful, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْعَصْرِ. You've all memorized this surah. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Iman is followed by what? Salah? No. Siyam? No. Hajj? No. Amilu salihat, good humanitarian deeds. In fact, if you want to know your level of iman, put yourself on this specific scale. Many people are millionaires. They have a lot of money. He'll pray Salat al-Layl. He will go to ziyarah. But he will not help the needy. He will not think of the poor. This iman is incomplete. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Let us, we hear stories about refugees and the border crisis and other people, and we don't care. We don't care what goes in the life of other people. And lastly, I want to conclude with this. When it comes to childhood trauma, I have 4 points to share with you. But before I do that, I want to tell you that the Holy Quran on many occasions emphasizes on the child-parent relationship. On many occasions. And he highlights two of extremely exceptional men within the Holy Quran who are exceptional parents, fathers. One of them is Yaqub. Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 135, the ayah that I began with. Yaqub spent time talking to his kids from the moment that they were born until the moment he was on his deathbed. Let me read this ayah to you one more time. This is Yaqub on his deathbed. You know Yaqub, right? You know the story of Yaqub and his family and his children, correct? Yaqub is the father of whom? Whom? There you go, Yusuf. You know the tribulations they went through and how they were tested. This prophet of God was tested in his children, with his own sons. Those brothers, out of jealousy, took Yusuf and they sold him as a slave. Then they came back to their father. Oh, father, the sheep, the wolf ate him. And Yaqub spent his whole life crying for Yusuf and what his sons had done, not just Yusuf. So he spent time talking to them because when Yusuf was very young, he saw the dream, he went to his father. He told the dream to his father. His father was trying to manage the situation. Anyways, we can't talk about the story of Yusuf right now. But this is the last moments of the life of Yaqub. Am kuntum shuhada? Oh, you Muslims, were you witnesses to Yaqub when he was on his deathbed? Of course they weren't. Yaqub was thousands of years prior to the Muslims. Correct? Allah is telling them, were you not a witness? Let me tell you. And by Allah drawing this picture for the Muslims, it's meant to connect them to the story of Yaqub. Take lessons from the story of Yaqub. Learn from the story of Yaqub. أم كنتم شهداء إذ حضر يعقوب الموت. Yaqub was on his deathbed. إذ قال لبنيه, he told his sons, those troublemakers, ما تعبدون من بعدي, what will you worship after me? قالوا نعبد إلهك, we will worship your Lord, وإله آبائك, and the Lord of your father Ibrahim, إسماعيل وإسحاق, إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون, and we have become Muslim. Muslim, not like me and you. We call ourselves Muslim. Muslim means submissive. Now imagine if you are Yaqub and this is what your kids did. Will you talk to them? Or will you give up on them? Let's be real. He didn't give up on them. Even when he knew they had lied, he didn't give up on them. He maintained his relationship with them. And when they were reunited with Yusuf, and Yusuf forgave them, this is what Yaqub says. So he spent the whole lifetime speaking to them, advising them, taking care of them. But the results, Allah says in the Quran, that they say, we will worship Allah and we now have become Muslim, submissive to Allah. We will no longer sin. We submit to the will of Allah. The other is Luqman. The whole surah is a discussion between Luqman, the wise, and his son, and the advice that he gives him. Look at the relationship of the Ahl al-Bayt with their children. Imam al-Hussein, before he sends out Qasim, okay, Qasim is going. He's going to become a martyr. We all know this. And we all know that Qasim knew the value of becoming a martyr, especially in defense of Imam al-Hussein, the Imam of his time. But the Imam wants to show the world that this guy is not a child. He's been groomed and taught. So in front of everyone, and for the course of history, he asks him, Ya Qasim, you're about to go and give your life. You're about to become a martyr. كيف ترى الموت دونك? How do you find this death that is fast approaching you? And the kid, without hesitation, and he didn't give a whole speech. He said a few words, but look how meaningful those few words are. How intelligent, bright, determined this child was. في نصرتك يا عم أحلى من العسل. As long as I am in your defense, it's sweeter than honey. This is because of the tarbiyah and the school of Imam al-Hussein. Quickly mention, inshallah, and finish for this evening. Number one, neglect. Neglect is real. Brothers and sisters, parents, wherever you are and wherever you hear me, take neglect extremely seriously. Do not neglect your children, especially nowadays with the iPhones and the... Allahu Akbar. I've seen parents today making money off their kids. They dress their kids, let's take some photos, post them online. That's it, that's what they need from their kids. That's the attention so they get likes on Instagram. So I show the whole world that we're all smiling. How many of you have heard of cutting? All of you. You've seen kids do it. You know, cutting is real. I never understood cutting. Why would they do that? And they bleed. Go read about it. It's because of neglect. If you cut yourself, you will be in pain. When that kid who is neglected cuts him or herself, they will not feel pain. It's called a regulating technique. In fact, they feel pleasure. Imagine the pain inside of that child that they're willing to cut themselves because of parents that are neglectful towards their children. Do not neglect your children. Spend quality time with them. Not time in close proximity, quality time with them. Speak to them. Hear their sentiments. Ask them questions. Care for them. Especially if they speak of their emotions. Today in America, we spend time in close proximity with one another, but not quality time. We don't spend quality time. Especially the fathers. They're always chasing money. Let's be real. They treat the home like a bed and breakfast. He's in at night, he sleeps in the morning, takes a shower, and he's out the door. Why? Because he wants to leave a fortune for his kids. And many of us, mashallah, we're leaving fortunes behind. Not for one generation, for 3 generations. But morally bankrupt generations. Kids, family. In fact, this child is counting the days. Wallah, my father, I thought he's going to leave by 70. He's 85 now, he's still around. Just waiting for the fortune. Need to go and buy me that Bentley. You think this is a joke? It's real. It is real. It's happening as we speak. Because the father was so neglectful of his kids. And all he thought was, my kids need money. Money does not buy you happiness. Money does not bring you joy. Money does not ensure peace within your family. Number 2, abuse. Inshallah, there are no people physically abusing their children. But the hadith from Rasulullah says that a glance from a parent that installs fear in their child's heart without a reason. You know what its punishment is? 75 smacks on the Day of Judgment. No, I'm joking, it's worse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that parent afraid on the Day of Judgment. Allahu Akbar. Is it worth it? Yes, to discipline I'm not against disciplining your children. Sometimes you look at them in a way that is meant to discipline them. You speak to them in a way that's meant why? Because you want to protect your kids. You as a parent, you have to protect your kids. I'm not against parents who say, no, alhamdulillah, let them make mistakes, they'll learn, inshallah. And next thing you know, they're addicted to heroin. But while you listen to this. This is the most important thing for me to say. While you give them that glance, make sure they know it is out of love and compassion. You know, a child that's being abused, they don't have the appropriate language skills to speak of what's happening to them. They cannot communicate the pain. I'd have to conclude. Unfortunately, I had a few other points, but I want to say this. 3 and 4 are very much related. Social media. Brothers, sisters, my younger friends, your friends on social media, the likes, the followers, it is all fake. Let me be real with you. It is all fake. Even if you have 1.5 million followers, they are fake. None of them are your friends. And unfortunately, one day you're going to have to wake up to this realization. Do not spend your precious hours trying to get likes and comments on Facebook and social media. They are meaningless. While we live in an era of tweeting and posting and comments and likes, what's happening to our youth? Go read the polls. Anxiety, depression, attempt for suicide is on the rise. Because we created this most dangerous tool and we put it in the hands of our children. Worse than drugs. Social media is the most destructive tool in the hands of our children today. You see, I read this article not long ago that explained why we get tired when we travel. You see, we shouldn't get so tired. Because let's say you're traveling 6 hours in a day, you end up going to the airport, you wait for your flight to board, you board the flight, then you get your luggage, you sit in the car and you come home. It's not that difficult, you haven't done much. Why do you get so tired? You come home and you're like, I'm exhausted. It's traveling today, 6 hours. But a normal workday is 6 hours. It's because our mind, when we go to a new setting, constantly is vigilant. It scans, analyzes, scans, analyzes, scans, analyzes. Everybody on the plane, everybody in the waiting area, everybody at the airport, everybody at the luggage carousel. We don't know this, right? Psychiatrists are telling us that is why we get tired today when we travel. Now imagine what social media does to you. TikTok. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds. That's all you can do. And you're constantly in this cycle of seeing something, analyzing it, fatiguing and frying your brain. Now try picking up a book. Can you read for 4 hours straight? You cannot. You know the damage that you're doing to yourself if you cannot read for 4 hours straight. If you cannot focus at school. People, selfish people are becoming billionaires off of you. Destroying your future. Last but not least, brothers and sisters, the most important asset that you can give to yourself and your family and your children is to create a powerful community. Those are not my words. A close-knit, compassionate community is the best gift that you could give to yourself, because those people will attend your funeral, they'll attend your wedding, they'll attend to you when you're ill, they'll take care of you, they'll give you a loan, they'll look after you, they'll look after your kids. Not your friends on Facebook. And especially, brothers and sisters, especially if this community has come together under the banner of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The Shia Muslims are showing an example to the world that has not yet been witnessed in the course of history. I say this with full confidence. 20 million people in the city of Karbala, at the shrine of Imam al-Hussein, all of them are fed. All of them are taken care of. All of them sleep peacefully at night. You don't see fights break out. Why? Because it is the love of Imam al-Hussein. It is the love of Imam al-Hussein that does magic. That's brought millions of people together all around the world. And a night like this, millions of people are sitting and commemorating Imam al-Hussein. This is the best of communities. When you come together on the banner, under the banner of the Ahl al-Bayt. I help you not because who you are, because you are a lover of Hussein. because you bear the love of Imam al-Hussein. إِنِّي سِلْمٌ لِمَنْ سَالَمَكُمْ. I am at peace with those who are at peace with you. And that's all that matters. You bear the love of Imam al-Hussein, you're my brother. You're my sister. I'm here for you. Let us take our hearts and our souls to Karbala.